Since the pandemic started, you've been seeing all these posts leaving California, leaving New York City, all of these posts of people leaving these big cities to go to the suburbs or to other states. And what is the overall real estate market looking like in 2021 and beyond? In this video, we're going to talk about the effect of people leaving big cities, why prices are at their all-time highs despite the pandemic, and whether or not it makes sense for you to buy a house in 2021 with the prices as high as they are. So stay tuned and we'll talk about all of that in this video. So welcome to my channel. My name is Dylan Cross and I'm currently a full-time software engineer. In addition to that, I own rental property in the Boston area and I've been passionate about real estate investing for about 10 years now. So first, I'm going to talk about how real estate prices are at their all-time highs right now. I'll then talk about what the effect of everyone leaving these big cities is having on the large cities. And then finally, whether or not you should buy a house in these current market conditions. And I'll lay out everything that I've researched about the real estate market over the next 5 years and what the projections are, as well as give a few of my own opinions based on that research. Recent reporting shows that US housing prices rose at their fastest pace on record in the last 30 years, even surpassing that of 2005. This is despite the high unemployment rates due to the pandemic, and is largely fueled by low interest rates as well as low supply. The median price of a single-family home in the US rose by 15% in the last year. The highest gains were in the Northeast with an average of 21% gains. Fairfield County in Connecticut, for example, is a large suburb, and that rose by 39%, the highest in the country. And this is all due to the pandemic showing that a lot of people can work remotely. A lot of companies have gone full-time remote for the foreseeable future, and some of them even permanently. And they can move out of the city and get a lot more house for their money. And while housing is at its all-time high, it's projected that it will continue to rise by 8 to 10% over 2021. This will be largely fueled by the low supply as well as the low interest rates sticking around for the next year or so. And even in the big cities that people are all leaving, these cities are still seeing a huge increase in price due to these factors. For example, you've seen everyone saying they're leaving California. Well, in 2020, the California housing market went up by about 8%, and is projected to go up by another 1 to 2% in 2021, despite everyone leaving California. And this is similar to most cities around the country. In New York City, which was the epicenter of the pandemic, we saw housing prices go up by 5%, and the median list price for a house was $835,000, up by over 22% over last year. And the average sale to list ratio was 97.43%. And that is really good for sellers, but for a buyer, you want to see the average sale to list price of about 90%. So this shows that this is still very much a seller's market. Even in the biggest cities that people are all leaving, the highest priced cities. And this is similar to Boston, where I live. And in Boston, it's expected to get even worse in 2021. Prices in Boston last year rose by about 5%, and Zillow predicts that they will rise by about 10% over 2021. And so I'm sure the big question that you're all wondering is the market gonna crash? Can it sustain these unprecedented prices that are out there today? And while you would expect that these prices can't stay as high as they are forever, it's actually not projected that there's going to be any major crash over the next 3 to 5 years. In fact, it's projected that real estate prices will continue creeping up even past 2021. Of course, it is expected that there will be some ups and downs in the market, but there's no major crash foreseen at this current time. And let me tell you why that is. Now, a lot of you may be thinking that there's a lot of people behind on their mortgages right now. When the forbearance ends, then of course there's going to be a ton of foreclosures, and that's going to cause a real estate market crash, similar to what happened in 2008. However, let me tell you why that's not actually true for this scenario. The first major difference is borrowers are in a much better place this year than they were in 2008. In 2008, there were a lot of subprime mortgages out there, which is what really fueled the crash. However, since then, lenders have been very strict on who they lend money to, so that has made it so that borrowers today are in a much better place. They have better finances, higher credit scores, and overall are in a better place to weather out the current situations. So that's one of the big contributing factors. And then the other reason is when the government allows forbearance to run out, lenders are much more likely to work with borrowers to tack on these payments to the end of their loan rather than foreclosing on their home. They're much more open to offer loan modifications rather than just foreclosing on these properties because if a real estate market crash happened, it would really hurt the lenders. So it's in their best interest to do so. And I don't know if there'll be any government regulations around this at the end of this forbearance period. I would personally like to see that to make sure that nobody has to lose their house because of this pandemic. And of course, it doesn't mean all lenders are going to do this. I'm sure there will be plenty of lenders that will still foreclose on houses. And that leads me to another difference between 2008 and today. Today, most people have a lot of equity in their home. So if they were actually going to lose their house, they would more likely just sell their home and then pay off the lender that way and avoid a foreclosure altogether because they have enough equity to pay the lender. And then some other contributing factors about why the real estate market isn't likely to crash and is actually going to continue growing. It is expected that low interest rates will remain through 2021 and possibly into 2022. As long as interest rates are low, then housing prices can be high because people can afford more house for their money. And then the next contributing factor is that by 2023, there's about 25 million millennials that will be in their prime state to buy a house. This is because it's the age that they're going to start having families and start settling down. So it's predicted that that will play a strong role in having a high demand through 2023. So what does this all mean for you if you're looking to buy a house in the near future? Should you buy a house in 2021? Or should you wait for the market to dip or to crash, as some may say? Now, based on what I just went through, it is unlikely for a market to crash in the next 3 to 5 years. So if you wait now to buy a house just for that reason, you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunity over the next 3 to 5 years. You're going to continue paying rent to your landlord. You're going to continue missing out on the equity building. You're going to miss out on the pay down of the loan. And this is going to vary from person to person. Are you looking to buy a family home that you want to live in for the next 5, 10, 20 years? And you're just looking to settle down, but you don't want to overpay right now? Well, when you buy real estate, you shouldn't be looking to make money in the next 3 to 5 years on it, especially if you're planning to live in it for the next 20 years. So that shouldn't really be a factor for you. If you look at prices from 2008 to now, prices are even higher now than they were at the peak before the 2008 crash. So if you had waited all these 10, 12 years to buy a house, then you would have also missed out on a lot of equity building. You would have wished you would have bought a home back then as well because they were a lot cheaper. And the other consideration, are you a real estate investor? Are you looking to buy rental property? Although rent rate now has taken a hit due to the pandemic and a lot of people, especially college students, are remote learning and doing things like that, the rental market will rebound and rents will continue to rise. And the same goes if you're looking to buy a multifamily to house hack, which I talk about in this video here. In my opinion, if you're going to house hack with a multifamily, there's almost no downside to buying right now. And the one thing to keep in mind is if you're buying, no matter what kind of house you're buying, you want to make sure you're getting a good deal. Don't just go out and overbid on houses just because the housing market is so tight right now. Take your time to get a decent deal on a house. This would be the same advice even if we weren't in such a competitive market, because the problem with real estate is when you buy the house, that's when you either make the money or you lose the money. So never overpay for a house just because of your emotions. As long as you don't overpay for a house, then that wouldn't stop me from suggesting that you look for a good deal and buy a house. But the most important thing to consider is, are your finances stable? Is your job stable? Is your job something that could be affected by the pandemic going forward? Do you have enough savings in the bank? Have you got your debt under control? All of these factors will play a huge role in you personally understanding if you're ready to buy a house right now. I know it may be tempting because interest rates are at their all-time lows. However, if you're not ready to buy a house financially yet, it is actually smarter for you to continue renting until you get to a stable place where you can afford a house and any expenses that come up. So to summarize, you'll be okay if you do decide to buy a house in 2021. The housing market isn't going to crash anytime soon, and housing prices are going to continue ticking up over the next 3 to 5 years. But the most important thing is just take your time when you're buying real estate. You could take all of 2021 to find a good deal for a house that you'd like, and that would be okay. There's no problem with taking your time, especially in this market. And so I hope this information was helpful. I hope this has answered any questions you may be wondering about the real estate market and whether or not you should buy. And I hope you understand better why real estate prices are still rising even in places that people are leaving like crazy. It's all the basic rules of supply and demand. And right now, supply is very low and demand is very high due to interest rates. So if you enjoyed this content, definitely like the video down below. Leave a comment, what are your plans for 2021 in real estate? Let me know down below. And if you enjoy real estate content, financial content, then definitely subscribe for more content, as I have lots of new content coming out every single week. Thank you for watching and see you next time.